We really are. I mean, I go into rooms with people who, again, seemingly have nothing in common and have everything in common. Rooms of people of all kinds of different backgrounds, of ages, coming together in this sense of just the collective. We're good. And so we're going to keep doing this work with the optimism that it requires to be strong. Everyone here knows, in the context of your family, in your life, when you believe something is possible, you put in the hard work, and you know it's good work. Hard work is good work. It's joyful work, and we get the job done. Let's get this done. Thank you all.
All right, so Kamala Harris rallying voters on the ground in Scranton, PA, a must-win state for both candidates. We're about to see the former President Trump there shortly.
All right, it is election eve in America, and at this hour, all eyes on the state of Pennsylvania. Vice President Kamala Harris, as you saw, on the ground right now. That's Joe Biden's hometown of Scranton. You remember what he said there the other day? While former President Trump set to speak soon in Reading. Keystone State could determine, in fact, who wins the White House.
Here we go. Welcome back to America Reports. We're kicking off hour 2 here. I'm Sandra Smith.
And I'm John Roberts.
Good to be with you. All right, so this time tomorrow, we will be just hours away from the first polls closing. Can you believe it? 7 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, but nearly 75 million Americans have already cast their ballots. So these final campaign stops in crucial swing states are all to turn out the in-person vote tomorrow.
Fox team coverage starts now in the battleground Keystone State. Jackie Heinrich in Philadelphia covering the Harris campaign. Jackie, she's really doing a blitz there of Pennsylvania today. 4 stops in total.
That's right. And I was just watching those remarks, John, and it was really incredible to me that she referred to Trump twice as the other guy. That is a serious shift away from how she launched this final leg of her campaign with that fiery speech on the ellipse on Tuesday. She attacked Trump by name 24 times. We noticed this shift began yesterday, where she didn't mention Trump by name all day long. And just a few moments ago, a senior campaign official told me that that is the strategy. They want to close out fully positive. It'll be interesting to see how long she can keep that up, because as Pete Buttigieg noted in an interview, the campaign sometimes wants to respond to some of the things that Trump does, but that takes them off of message about what the Harris campaign could do for voters. And so it's a delicate dance for them, and they've evidently calculated that the focus right now needs to be on what Harris could do if elected as president to try to drive that voter turnout. We also noticed in Lansing yesterday a bit of a shift on how she's messaging around the war in Gaza. It's different than how she's messaging about it here in Pennsylvania. There are competing ads. The Pennsylvania ads play up Israel's right to defend itself, saying she'll always protect and support that right. The ads in Michigan talk about the plight of Palestinians. And speaking to a group yesterday in Lansing, Michigan, where there were Arab Americans in the crowd, she sort of softened that language about Israel's right to defend itself, saying, we want to end this war. We want to make sure Israel is secure. Different language there. So as she makes her way across these battleground states, we are witnessing subtle shifts in her tone. Broadly, though, trying to stay positive, trying to drive turnout. You saw her saying, get out the vote, get out the vote, get out the vote. And here in Philadelphia, they're going to want to get out the black voter more than other groups, really, because there is concern that if there's lagging support among black voters, that could tilt the state in a way that they don't want. And so we had a campaign call, and officials weren't giving out any hard data on the early voter turnout, especially on things that they are measuring, we know, like early black voter turnout. And that could be an early indication of some concern. But they've got a day left, John, so we'll see them try to push it right here at the end.
I know that Obama's campaign manager, Jim Messina, was saying earlier on another program, or maybe it was yesterday, that he's very concerned about the early vote and the way that it's coming out. So we'll see what happens. Jackie Heinrich for us in Philadelphia. Thank you, Jackie. Sandra?
All right, now to Alex Harf. She is in Reading, PA for us, where the former President Donald Trump will be shortly. Hi, Alex.
Hi, good to be with you. Yeah, after rallying here in Reading, the former president will head to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Heading into the day, he's actually been to the state 15 times. And part of the Trump campaign strategy that we've seen play out nationwide, it's been holding particularly true here in Pennsylvania, trying to reach out to demographics that have historically sided with Democrats. That's Latino and Hispanic voters, black voters, as Jackie was talking about on the other side, and union members. For example, steelworkers. The Steelworkers International endorsed Vice President Harris, but there are rank-and-file chapters that have broken away from that, like Local 1557 member Andrea Mitchell.
My family was all Democrats. And up until this year, that's how I voted, Democrat. I didn't want to make that mistake again this year, because I feel that, the party has left us. And it's time for a change.
Well, Pennsylvania has been the most visited state for the two campaigns. Yesterday, Trump held a rally in Lancaster County. There, he criticized the issues that several counties have had with a very cumbersome mail-in ballot submission process that's unique to Pennsylvania. Listen.
Look at what's going on. Look at what's going on in your state. Every day, they're talking about extending hours and stuff. Who ever heard of this stuff? We should have one-day voting and paper ballots.
But of course, he did encourage his supporters to go out and vote legally any way possible. That includes early voting. So Trump supporters were credited really for a lot of the long lines that we've been seeing for this on-demand mail-in voting process that takes place here in Pennsylvania. Something that will likely lengthen the count, though, here is the fact that election law does not allow for any ballots to be even opened until 7 a.m. tomorrow, guys.
All right, Alex Harf in Reading there for us. We should see the former president there shortly. Thank you, John.
Vice presidential hopefuls J.D. Vance and Tim Walz are pitching voters in Wisconsin. Brand new polling reveals the race a dead heat in the must-win Badger State. Mike Tobin live in La Crosse, Wisconsin with more. What's the message that the candidates are putting out there in the final hours, Mike?
John, in the final hours, the message is really just boiled down to get out the vote. The presidential candidates have made their last stops in Wisconsin. It was the vice presidential candidates, as you mentioned. Here, both of them showing up in La Crosse, Wisconsin today. The persuading of voters is largely done. The messaging today was don't let anyone sit this out.
This election quite literally could be won through the state of Wisconsin, and it could be won right here through La Crosse for the work that we're doing. That's how close this thing could be.
We are going to say to Kamala Harris tomorrow, you are fired. We want to go back to common sense leadership. We want to go back to Donald Trump.
And Hale Emerson put out a poll today cementing the idea that Trump and Harris are neck and neck. There you see it, 49-49, no room for undecided voters. Wisconsin voters are taking their role in this election very seriously. In-person early voting is up about 300,000 ballots from the same time last election. John, back to you.
Mike Tobin for us in picturesque La Crosse, Wisconsin. Mike, thank you. Sandra?
Lovely looking town there. All right, the race for the Senate seat in Wisconsin, it is tightening. And the race could play a critical role in determining the balance of power in the upper chamber. Let's bring in Republican Wisconsin Senate candidate Eric Hovde. We should note we did invite his challenger, incumbent Democrat Senator Tammy Baldwin, on as well. And she is welcome to join. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us today. First up, how you feeling just hours away from the big day?
I feel great, and thanks for having me, Sandra. The momentum is clearly on our side, and I have to chuckle about Senator Baldwin not responding because she doesn't do almost any interviews. I've been running from morning to night for 9 months. I've got 7 speeches today. I can't tell you how many media hits. So, look, I feel really good about where things stand in our state. It's going to be a jump ball race, don't get me wrong. Everybody has to get out and vote, but you can clearly see the momentum's on our side.
All right. So right now, when it comes to your race, I'll move on to the presidential race in just a second. But when it comes to this Wisconsin Senate race, this is just how close it is. And right now, your opponent, Baldwin, does have the edge by 1.4 points. That is the Real Clear Politics average. What's your closing message to voters in this very close race?
Well, that's an average, and the latest polls, there was out one last night that showed me up by almost 1%. Look, the main message is it's time for change. Senator Baldwin has been in Washington for 26 years, been in politics for 38 years. She's voted for all this crazy stuff of guys playing in girls' sports and going into girls' locker rooms and bathrooms, and voted for every one of the spending bills that has ignited inflation, voted to give illegal immigrants cash payments while we have veterans living on the streets. So, you know, she's just very hardcore left, never really gets anything done. And, you know, I come from the real world, the private sector. I understand the problems and how to go about fixing them. So the message is it's time for change.
All right. Well, she's not here, and she's welcome to join us at any point. But she did do some media because she went on with Andrea Mitchell on Andrea Mitchell Reports and said this about you. Listen.
My opponent would repeal the Affordable Care Act. I helped write the Affordable Care Act. My opponent celebrated when the Dobbs decision came down, overturning Roe v. Wade. I am the champion of the Women's Health Protection Act, which would make Roe the law of the land. You can't have a sharper contrast, but my opponent is just attack, 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 rather than trying to defend his positions and his plans.
To that, you say what?
I just have to laugh. Every single ad she's ran has been a lie. Look, she says, I want a national abortion ban. I don't. She's trying to say, I want to take Social Security. She's the one bankrupting Social Security. Literally, she's trying to tell people, I'm from California. I'm a fourth-generation Wisconsinite. I couldn't be running for the Senate if I was from California. And by the way, do you think I sound like I'm from California? So, look, I do think we need to restructure the Affordable Care Act. It said it was going to lower the costs and access to care would improve, and you'd be able to keep your family doctor. What's happened? The results matter. The cost of health care has continued to rise dramatically, even at a faster pace. Access to care has continued to fall, and it's becoming very severe in our rural communities. And by the way, the family doctor has all but disappeared. So, look, she's just wrong on almost everything. She never wants to talk about her votes on inflation that helped ignite inflation or any of these things.
All right, Wisconsin Senate candidate Eric Hovde, thank you very much, sir, for your time. Thanks for coming on today. And again, Tammy Baldwin is welcome to join us here on America Reports. And thank you very much, sir. And John, I'll pop up the Real Clear Politics average there in Wisconsin.
I was just going to say, whoa, geez, he doesn't sound anything like he's from California.
No Midwest accent there whatsoever. This is the Real Clear Politics average in that state, okay, showing just how close this is. We know what it looked like in 2016, 2020.
Percentage point.
That's the Real Clear Politics average heading into tomorrow, and boy, oh boy, does Wisconsin matter.
It does. And I think it's fascinating, too, that in Pennsylvania, it seems to all be coming down to how much support Harris can get out in Philadelphia. And that's by and large minority support as well. And we see that the black vote is down from 2020. Hispanics are increasingly going toward President Trump. So this is going to be a squeaker of an election.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to look at the Fox News voter analysis data that comes out of these states. It'll really tell the story as we work our way through election night tomorrow night.
Yep. Our election coverage brought to you by NoDoz. All right. There's a new label out there for Kamala Harris. Axios calling her the, quote, no comment candidate as she remains vague on policy. We'll talk to the co-chair of her campaign, Delaware Senator Chris Coons, just ahead.
All right. Plus, Nikki Haley with a plea to voters this election eve. We have our all-star panel,
President Trump. And the most important message I want to give to voters today is get out and vote.
That was New York Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik in our last hour. As the presidential candidates make their final push, so are their supporters. Former Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley making one final pitch to her supporters with an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal titled, Trump isn't perfect, but he's the better choice. Will it move the needle at all? Let's bring in Matt Gorman, Targeted Victory Executive Vice President, and Marie Harf, Fox News contributor and former State Department spokesperson under President Obama. So here's what the Nikki Haley op-ed said in part, quote, if you like his policies, but are put off by his tone or excesses, consider the cost of the past 4 years. I don't agree with Mr. Trump 100% of the time, but I do agree with him most of the time. And I disagree with Ms. Harris nearly all the time. That makes this an easy call. Marie, it's a very Reagan-like statement when he famously said, if you agree with somebody 80% of the time, they're your ally, not your 20% traitor. Will that potentially move the needle among women who haven't voted yet, who are waiting until tomorrow, trying to make the decision between voting for Trump or voting for Harris?
Well, John, it's interesting. The Trump campaign knows they have a serious problem because women have been fleeing from Donald Trump to Kamala Harris, including independent women, including many Republican women. all these latest polls, especially in the blue wall states, Michigan, Wisconsin, even that outlier Iowa poll, showed that especially older white women were really overwhelmingly now going towards Harris because, and look, that's a group that delivered the presidency in large part to Donald Trump in 2016, because of the repeal of Roe versus Wade, his language on the campaign trail. Look, you can write all the op-eds you want if you're Nikki Haley, but Donald Trump has not asked her to campaign for him, hasn't had her join him at rallies. He has done nothing to bring women back into the fold. And when his closing message is, I will protect you if you want me to or not, the Trump campaign has a serious problem, and my prediction is that women are going to put Kamala Harris over the top here because they are mad, and we're seeing it in every demographic and in every poll.
All right, but according to New York Times columnist Ross Douthat, who had a really interesting op-ed today, Matt, there is a crisis of confidence with Kamala Harris. He wrote, quote, notwithstanding the great rally around her after Biden's bow out, the Democratic nominee for president is still the Dan Quayle-like figure that almost everybody saw just a little while ago. Still vague on policy and painful in extended interviews, still carrying a record as a vice president that inspires little confidence in her abilities. So late deciders who are waiting until tomorrow to cast their ballot, they look at Kamala Harris, and many people say you see an empty vessel. You see somebody who hasn't articulated policies. What are they to hang their hat on when they pull the lever?
Well, you're right. And as you teased before, Axios wrote a long piece calling her the no comment candidate. You're right. On a list of issues which she hasn't really weighed in on. She took one side in 2019, and now she refuses to say where she stands right now. But look, this is going to be in many ways a gender gap election. Elise Stefanik, as you said before, was exactly right on this. The NBC News poll that came out yesterday shows Trump doing better with men than Harris doing with women, and whatever side gets more of those supporters to their side is going to win this election. If we need to outperform with men, then we lose women by. This election is going to be won by us.
All right, Marie, here is a potential point of concern for Democrats. Even Jim Messina said that this is a little scary. Early voting in Pennsylvania, way down for Democrats, down a little bit for the GOP. In 2024, Democrat early vote return 971,615, Republican 571,725. Compare that to 2020. It was 1,702,000 for the Democrats, 623,404 for the Republicans. The Democrats this year, Marie, are down 42%. The Republicans are down 8%. Again, Jim Messina called it scary. What do you call it?
Well, look, I think this whole election season has been scary in many ways, but my friends I've talked, and it's almost over, thank goodness, but my friends I've talked to working on the campaign who are looking at these numbers every day, tell me, you can't compare things to 2020, especially with early vote. It was such a different election, and there is a question about whether this Republican early vote surge that we're seeing is just cannibalizing from Election Day, because now the RNC has really been pushing Republicans to get out early and vote. Look, I feel very confident about our chances in Pennsylvania, in large part because we know that groups like women vote more than men, and we have seen that there's been all this concern about black men and how they were vote, and in the latest polls, they're really holding steady for Democrats. So I'm worried about these numbers. Everybody has to get out and vote tomorrow, but Democrats knocked on 2,000 doors a minute in Pennsylvania this weekend. That is a get out the vote operation that Elon Musk cannot come close to matching.
Yeah. Now, in some states, there has been a GOP surge, but there in Pennsylvania, it's actually declined, Matt, in the number of Republicans who voted early. But here's the problem for Democrats. They're down in the early vote. They typically don't make that up on Election Day. Republicans typically rule the day on Election Day. So if you've got that decline in early voting for Democrats, plus the Republicans' inherent advantage or historic advantage on Election Day, what does that say about Pennsylvania?
Yeah, Republicans I talked to are pretty heartened with what they're seeing in Pennsylvania right now. And you mentioned it a couple minutes ago as well, talking with Sandra. One of the first things I'd be looking for is Philly turnout, along with Wayne County turnout out in Michigan. Those are going to be telling me what is the African-American turnout at with these levels. At a certain level, it could be good for Harris. But right now, if you're looking at where things are in Georgia, North Carolina, African-American turnout's way down. If that continues, that trend in Pennsylvania and Michigan, that could be a very good sign as we go into the night for President Trump. So that is one of those things I'll be watching for very, very closely.
All right. So, again, all we can do is sit back and wait and see what happens. Marie, I think you're one of those Democrats who is nauseously optimistic.
That's right.
That she'll pull it out in the end. We'll find out one of these days.
Exactly.
Matt, Marie, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John. All right, good stuff. Now, Vice Presidential nominee J.D. Vance is heading to Atlanta for a rally as former President Trump targets the blue wall. There are 16 electoral votes, as we know, up for grabs in Georgia. A lot of focus on the metro Atlanta area. That will be key. Fox Business's Madison Alworth is live there in Cobb County for us. Hello, Madison. What are you seeing and hearing there?
Hey, Sandra. Well, ahead of this Vance event, we're expecting him to talk to those voters that have not yet voted in this election. But it really is a minority because here in Georgia, over 2/3 of the voters that are expected to vote have already cast their ballot. We saw record high early voting in the state. 4 million people submitted their ballot by this Friday. But every vote counts here in Georgia. This is a state that was decided by just 12,000 votes in 2020. It's part of the reason why Vice Presidential nominee J.D. Vance will be hosting that rally here in Cobb County in the next few hours. Republicans are delivering the final message to these essential swing state voters after Trump also held an event in Macon, Georgia last night. Meanwhile, Harris and Walz do not have plans to visit Georgia today, but they visited Atlanta over the weekend. The campaign will hold a rally tonight with circuits, and it will feature singer Usher. In 2020, Georgia was the last state to report 16 days after the election. So we're going to be all eyes on Georgia, hoping for a quick result. Sandra?
Victory there. All right, Madison, thank you very, very much. All right, John?
All right, now north to Michigan, where former President Trump will make his closing pitch to voters in the last rally of his campaign. He's going to be out there in Grand Rapids. Grady Trimble is live there in Kent County. I was where you I was where you are 8 years ago. Closing moments of the campaign. It's going to be a late one. What can you expect that he's going to be saying tonight?
Yeah, we expect, John, the former president will make one late night, last minute push to get out the vote here in Michigan. And you can see behind me, despite this crummy weather and despite the fact this event probably won't get underway for another 8+ hours, we've got a line of supporters already here ready to go in the arena to see former President Trump give the last speech of this campaign and possibly his last speech as a presidential candidate ever. This is a significant and in many ways symbolic location to close out this campaign because, as you noted, John, this is where the former president held his final rallies of both the 2016 and 2020 campaigns.
He won 8 years ago when I was here. I missed 4 years ago. He lost, so I'm here this time. And I'm hoping that it's a repeat.
You're sounding a little superstitious too then, huh?
Oh, we all are a little bit.
Yeah, so the Trump campaign is happy with early voting so far here in Michigan. They say that turnout has been high in the rural areas. It's been a little muted, they say, in the urban areas, and they claim that bodes well for the former president, who will be here at around 10:30 or maybe a little bit later tonight. John?
You know, like that fella you talked to, I was there 8 years ago when he won and not there 4 years ago when he lost. So was it us? I'm not sure. Grady, thank you. Enjoy the lovely weather and the event tonight. I hope you get some sleep.
Thank you, John.
Sandra.
The music is rocking. All right, James Freeman is here, Wall Street Journal editorial page assistant editor and a Fox News contributor. You were so good at this last time, James. We brought you back for more.
Okay.
All right, so when it comes to, take for example, where we have our reporters on the ground right now. Let's start off in Michigan. We just heard the report on the ground there when it comes to Grand Rapids. This is a key county to watch on election night, Kent County, okay? Joe Biden flipped this from a Donald Trump 2016 victory. He won by 6 points in 2020. This was Donald Trump's county by 3 points in 2016. So why the change then, and what will you be watching here on election night?
Yeah, so Grand Rapids and that county, a bellwether for the state, and the state a bellwether for the nation. You look at Michigan statewide, this is one of those states that Trump won in 2016, lost in 2020. It's a little hard to predict. They're all hard to predict, but especially hard because people don't register there by party. So we've been looking at that in a lot of states to try and get a guide. What we're left with is polling showing a very tight race, and obviously a lot of those counties around Detroit are going to be big.
So that's Michigan. We also just had the report on the ground there in Georgia, Cobb County. Okay, Hillary Clinton won by 2 points in 2016. Joe Biden ran this up to a 14-point margin of victory, 56,000 votes there in 2020. So what's happening in these Atlanta, outside the counties just outside of Atlanta here, as we know just how much Biden won in that county by, Cobb County, 14 points back in 2020. What are you watching here?
Yeah, so election night, you're looking at can Trump contain the losses in Fulton? He's going to lose Fulton. But can he score some nice margins in Cobb and also DeKalb County? So those are places where Trump would hope to run better. It's another state, again, Trump won in 2016, lost in 2020. Also, like Michigan, you don't register by party in this state.
Great point.
So when we see these huge early voting numbers coming out of Georgia, people tend to guess based on where they're coming in, but you can't really know because, as in some other states, you can't say this many registered Republicans voted.
And as you're standing here, you just referenced the statewide vote tally. Wow.
It doesn't get much closer.
0.2%, 11,000 votes made the difference in 2020 when Biden took victory over Donald Trump. Okay, so based on everything you just said about Michigan and Georgia, what makes Pennsylvania different? This is obviously a must-win for each candidate.
Yeah, I think they both view it that way. They're both going there now. I think what maybe gives Republicans a little more confidence about this state is, like a lot of places, polling very close, margin of error, and who trusts the polling after the last few elections anyway. But you do register by party in Pennsylvania, and that's where you've seen traditionally Democratic state that margin shrinking. Huge registration growth advantage for Republicans versus Democrats since the last election.
Yeah, and the difference in the statewide vote tally, 81,000 votes. In all of Pennsylvania, it came down to 81,000 votes, just over a 1 percentage point in 2020.
That's right, and that's smaller by several hundred thousand than the margin that Republicans have gained in registration.
Yes.
So if you just looked at registration, and again, polls like a lot of places very close, that would, you would think, make Republicans optimistic.
One of former President Donald Trump's closing messages will be in Pittsburgh tonight. Joe Biden ran up the vote count there by 20 percentage points. He won in 2020. He ran the vote up from Hillary Clinton, who won by 16 percentage points there. Just real quickly, before you go, I want to go back out to the eastern portion of the state, Philadelphia, obviously deep blue Philadelphia, but these surrounding suburbs are going to be key to watch on election night. Look how close it got in 2016 there, in Chester County, for example. And Joe Biden, I mean, he ran it up there as well. 17 points he won by in Chester.
Yeah, Trump obviously wants to do better in the collar counties. I think a little bit further away you get York County, where Tim Walz was telling people at a fundraiser in California he wish they didn't have to campaign in places like that, and in Beaver County out here in the West. You do wonder if some of those comments end up biting the Harris-Walz team as we look at turnout among the sort of traditionally union blue-collar areas, both in the east and the western part of the state.
I mean, and I keep looking whenever I pull up, places like Philadelphia County, obviously the most populous county in the entire state, accounts for 12% of the population. But then when you back out, you just see those deep blue areas around the city there, and the rest of the state, so much of it is red and has been historically. James, thank you so much. Good to have you here. All right, John.
Sandra. All right, Sandra, sticking with the theme, it is election eve, and both candidates squeezing in their last stops in a state that could be critical to decide.
And vote. There's not a thing they can do.
We're going to vote for change. We're going to vote for American prosperity. We're going to vote for Donald J. Trump to be the President of the United States.
Everybody belongs. Everybody benefits when we work together for the common good. Those are the values we will take to the White House every single day.
Closing arguments on this election eve, a live look at Reading and Allentown, Pennsylvania, where former President Trump and Vice President Harris are set to hold dueling rallies in the Keystone State. They are just two of several today, with the hopes of swaying voters and winning those 19 electoral votes that are up for grabs. Let's bring the Democratic Delaware Senator and Harris-Walz campaign co-chair Chris Coons for more on this. So the Vice President, Senator, has got 4 campaign events in Pennsylvania. We saw her in Scranton. She's also in Allentown, Pittsburgh, and Philadelphia. That Philly rally won't happen until 11 o'clock tonight. Some people think that this election rides not just on Pennsylvania, but on how many voters Democrats can turn out in Philadelphia. What do you think?
Well, John, I've been crisscrossing the state of Pennsylvania in recent days, and I've been encouraged by how many folks are excited to come out and to vote for a positive change, for a new path forward with Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. I do think turnout in Philadelphia is key, but the collar counties, the 4 suburban counties around Philadelphia, and in northeastern Pennsylvania, in Scranton, where Vice President Harris began her day, and throughout the Commonwealth, are important as well. Look, I think in the closing days of this campaign, former President Trump has been talking about things that really don't connect with the average working family. Raising by 20% tariffs on everything imported into this country. That would be the equivalent of a new national sales tax or a $4,000 per family cost. And Kamala, our vice president, in the meantime, is talking about reducing health care costs, daycare costs, housing, and helping to start and support new small businesses. I think those positive, forward-looking messages are connecting with the voters I've been talking with.
Did you hear what he said this morning about possible tariffs against Mexico, when he said that he will contact, if he becomes president on day one, he'll contact the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, and he'll say, fix the problem with people coming up through Central America and Panama and everywhere else in the world through Mexico, or I'm going to slap a 25% tariff on everything coming out of Mexico. And he believes that that's a no-brainer for her, that she'll say, you know what, we can't deal with that, I'll fix the border.
Well, that's just another reminder that Trump's idea of how to conduct international relations is through threats and bullying.
But it works.
Mexico is our largest trading partner. It didn't work really well the last time he was president with our key allies around the world. I met with the heads of state from countries like Australia, Canada, Germany, Korea, who found his unmoored and unbalanced leadership style discouraging, and it's sometimes unnerving. I do think that we need to address border security. There's a great way to do it, a bipartisan bill that was on the floor of the Senate, and we should have passed months and months ago, except for former President Trump weighing in against it on the day we were to take it up and pass it. That will get taken up, passed, and signed into law by Vice President Harris in her first couple of weeks in office. And it's my hope that we'll have a positive agenda to work on, not one that imposes tariffs on every imported product from around the world.
But, you know, the other side of that is that there are a lot of people who say that that bill won't do anything really to decrease the amount of cross-border traffic. You said that you're optimistic about Pennsylvania, but here's something.
I'll say this: the Border Patrol Union endorsed it and said it would be the biggest change in border security they'd seen.
But they also endorsed
and
Trump.
It would have invested billions of dollars in new border security agents, in new deportation resources, and in new judicial resources. It was a balanced package that I think we should pass.
Okay, but they also endorsed Trump. So, I mean, it's a bit of a wash on that front. Okay, so you said that you're optimistic about Pennsylvania. Here's something that may cause you concern. Early voting, 2024, Democrats have put in 971,615, Republicans 571,725. Compared to 2020, you're down 42%. Republicans are down 8%. And here is what Jim Messina said on Sunday with Jen Psaki on MSNBC about the early vote. Listen here.
What's their biggest concern right now if you're the Harris team?
Well, look, I think it's a couple things. The early vote numbers are a little scary, and you and I have been texting back and forth. Republicans didn't do what they did last time. Last time Trump said don't early vote, and so they didn't. Republicans do have an advantage in early vote numbers. When the early vote come in, it's going to look a little bit different than 2020, and that's scary.
So he says it's scary what he's seeing in the early vote. What do you say?
I say that I hope folks will get out there and vote if you haven't already. Exercise your right to be a part of our democracy. And to your viewers, remember, we won't have final results here in Pennsylvania for several days.
Does it concern you, Senator, the way it
5th.
concerns Jim Messina?
Well, sure. I'm concerned about this election all over the country. It is going to be razor thin. We're going to be working on it until the last hour. Part of why I've been campaigning across Pennsylvania and encouraging people to come out and vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz is because I think this is very close.
Mũi nửa kép thứ 8. Mũi nửa kép thứ 11. Hàng thứ 2, móc 2 mũi nửa kép chung một chân. Lặp lại như vậy cho đến hết hàng. Hai mũi nửa kép chung một chân. Móc tất cả 11 lần như vậy. Hai mũi nửa kép chung một chân lần thứ 9. Hàng thứ 3, chân đầu tiên móc 1 mũi nửa kép. Chân thứ 2 móc 2 mũi nửa kép vào chung một chân. Móc tất cả 11 lần như vậy. Hai mũi nửa kép vào chung một chân. Tiếp theo là 1 mũi nửa kép. Lặp lại như vậy cho đến hết hàng. Một mũi nửa kép. Hai mũi nửa kép vào chung một chân. Hàng thứ 4,